Live right here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. We now check in on the PGA Tour. After golf's fifth unofficial major championship last week, we look back on what we saw at the 2024 Players Championship. We do that live right here on this Tuesday on the early line as Keith Stewart joins us here on TEL. Keith, we appreciate the time. Hope the travels back from Ponte Vedra Beach were safe and smooth. We're glad to have you here on this Tuesday.
The travel was a lot smoother than that 18th green on Sunday when Wyndham Clark lipped out. I was holding a plus 5,500 ticket, and that was a tough pill to swallow, boys. Good morning on a Tuesday.
A bad beat for sure. Halfway down and then somehow back up. It allows Scottie Scheffler to win his second consecutive Players Championship title, his second consecutive win on the PGA Tour. There were some questions, Keith, for Scottie to begin this year, despite being the best ball striker in the sport, on what he could do with the flat stick around the greens. It seems in the last 2 weeks he has answered that question. A win at the Arnold Palmer Invitational by 5 strokes, and he wins the Players' Championship for the second straight season as well. How do you describe the run that Scottie Scheffler is currently on?
I think it's in the middle. To be honest with you guys, he was injured, and he still won the Players. And the first guy ever to do it in 50 years. He's getting ready to do something probably pretty historic here. And as the lead up to Augusta, he's already got one green jacket that he can play very well there, and he won there by multiple shots. If he gets healthy with that neck, I think the sky's the limit. And we're gonna have to, as bettors, we're gonna have to get really, really creative, because he's not going to come in with like early 2000s Tiger odds pre-tournament, but it's going to start to get pretty close, and you're going to start to see him every week, 5 to 6, to 1. And that, you know what? You got to get real creative on the board or bet him live. He sat there plus 1,100 on Saturday night, shot 64 on Sunday, took the title. Amazing stuff.
Keith, we were expecting another major golfer last week to be in the mix here to try to win the TPC. If you're taking a look at Rory McIlroy, shot 9 under, fires a 65 opening round, like, okay, he's going to be in it, but then backed it up with a 73 and then a final round 72. What's the make of Rory McIlroy rounding into form with maybe a chance at one of these early majors like we take a look at coming up in the Masters?
I saw something last week, Donnie, that I have never seen before. Rory has always been one of the golden boys of the PGA Tour. Everyone has always been super supportive of him. The second day, walking around with his group with Victor and Jordan, Rory hits the ball in the water on 12. And I'm standing right there inside the ropes. And all of a sudden, the crowd starts heckling him. Hey, Rory, make sure you drop that in the right place. Hey, Rory, don't cheat this time. I mean, no one has ever said that to Rory before. And I believe he's a caring guy. I mean, he really wears his emotions on his sleeve. I think the incidents, whether they were right or wrong or how it all broke down on Thursday in the first round, really affected him the rest of the way. Rory's super talented, but I mean, on an emotion, a grip on your club is like a grip on your world, guys, right? Rory was unsettled, and it showed through his play all weekend.
Yeah, Rory has been the focus of the golf world in a dramatic sequence of events over the past 2 years or so, and there was some drama in his playing group, as we detailed last week in that opening round Thursday. Keith, we are in the lead up to Augusta National and the 2024 Masters, and you mentioned the prices on Scottie. He was plus 550, was Scottie Scheffler, to win the Players' Championship before the tournament got underway. That was more than half the rest of the field and then some. He's already sub 5-1 to win the green jacket, which would be the second of his career at the Masters at plus 490. So as we take that early odds outlook on major championship season that starts in just about a month in Augusta, Georgia, you mentioned getting creative. How are you going to be able to, if at all, bet Scottie Scheffler to win a tournament outright?
Well, there's a couple ways you could do it. Depends on how risk averse you are, how much you want to tempt fate. At the end of the day, I just start with Scottie every week like I did last week at top 5. So you're going to get something around, well, it's going to lower again, but we were getting around anywhere from plus 150 to plus 200 for him for a top 5. And then you look for that live market. You pick him up on Saturday night, you pick him up on Thursday afternoon. If somebody gets a 5, 6, 7 shot lead, and then you take your chances. Or pre-tournament, you have to parlay him with another placement. Maybe you feel like, Cam Smith is going to top 10 at the Masters. And you also feel like Rory's going to top 10 at the Masters. Take those two guys top 10, take Scottie to win. You put the three together, then you're going to get Scottie at a much higher number, and you can make some money that way. But taking Scottie straight out against all those elite players at less than 5-1, Scottie's great, guys, but he's no Tiger Woods. Sorry.
Couple more weeks here, and we're going to find ourselves going up to Augusta, Georgia. But before we get there, we got the Valspar Championship this weekend, a par 71 course, 7,340 yards. Keith, can you tell us a little bit about what we can anticipate from this golf course this weekend?
Well, it's funny, they keep talking about how tough these golf courses are on the Florida swing. The Valspar or the Copperhead course down there at the Innisbrook Resort might be the toughest of all of them. It's a par 71 at 7,300 yards. Now, that's long, and it gets even longer when I tell you guys on the scorecard it shows 5 par 3s. So you get the driver out one less time, and we're still getting to 7,300 yards. The things you want to look for if you're modeling out players this week, approaches over 200 yards is a big one. Also, putting these greens. These are some of the toughest greens in Florida. Same grass we dealt with last week at TPC Sawgrass, an overseed of Poa Trivialis, super smooth. But these greens, they seem to trick the guys up a little bit. Off the tee, it's very positional. Guys have to hit a spot about 250 off the tee, a lot of dog legs, a lot of rough here, guys. They increased the height of rough last year by 3/4 of an inch, and they're doing it again this year. So small greens, 200-yard plus approaches. Watch your short game as well. Those are my 3 keys for this week when you start to handicap the course there at the Valspar.
Xander Schauffele, nearly a Scottie Scheffler-esque price, at least relative to the rest of the field at the Valspar Championship, plus 650. Almost half of everybody else. Sam Burns, second best number at 12-1. Justin Thomas, 14-1. Jordan Spieth, 16-1. And Brian Harmon, who finished in that tie for second alongside Xander Schauffele and, of course, Wyndham Clark, 19 under at the Players' Championship. Harmon's price this week, 20-1. Keith, what do you make of the outright odds for this week's Valspar Championship?
The favorites at the top, it's an interesting class. I mean, Schauffele is no Scheffler. He's coming off back-to-back or 2 wins in a row. Schauffele hasn't won since 2022. Then you look at Sam Burns, great record here. He's an early lean for me. You have Justin Thomas, didn't make the cut last week there at the Players. Jordan Spieth, he hasn't won since 2022. Sung Jae Im, the approach game, still not there. And I said you need it here. Cam Young, Tony Finau. Tony Finau has played here a couple times, and he's missed the cut in all but one of them. For me, the early leans on the early line, Sam Burns, who I love. 5 starts here, 12th to 30th, 2 wins and a 6th last year. Brian Harmon, big game hunter. I think he's still in hunting mode. He's definitely a guy that I love here. He started the week in the high 20s. He's now down to 22. People are all over him, and a great positional golfer. And here's one for you. I love the GIM Reaper this week. That's right, Doug GIM. He started the week at 60-1. He's down to 45-1, guys. 5 straight top 20s. And he had good history at Sawgrass, and he still played well. So those 3 guys right there, my early leans, of course, on the early line.
We appreciate that, Keith. We certainly do. And it's about finding your form in these next 3 weeks. This is the final tournament on the PGA Tour in the Florida swing. Then we go to Houston, San Antonio, and then stroll up Magnolia Lane for the first major championship of this year in golf. Of course, that is the Masters. Keith Stewart, we appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us here on this Tuesday on the Early Line.
Guys, I appreciate it. It's nice to be home. And the next time I'm on the road is Augusta, Georgia.